In this lesson, we'll take a look at creating a custom menu or palette that can contain commonly used tools. So there may be some case where we want to actually create our own menu item or palette that we can drag off into our trays that can contain certain things that we want to access quickly. Well, we can do that again by going to Preferences. Under Config, we want to go ahead and enable Customize, and then we want to go down to Custom UI and expand that out. And here we can create new menu, and you can see there's a few blank dividers here and then a custom sub palette. So we'll go ahead and say create new menu, and I'm just going to call this DT. You can call yours whatever you like. You can see that it's added up here to the end. If I go ahead and open up a tray, you can see it actually moves it down alphabetically. So now it's located after color and before document. Depending on what you name yours, it's going to be in a different location. So let's go ahead and click on this, and we'll drag it over to the side. Okay. If you want to rename it, you can go ahead and Control-Alt-click it. If you want a longer name, or you want to change the name somehow, you can go ahead and change that. Now we need to start adding things to our menu. You can see there's a little user indicator here telling us that we've created this. So now what we can do is start to drop different things over here into our new menu. So let's say that I want to be able to access some brushes. So we'll go ahead and hold down Control-Alt, and I'll drag the clay buildup brush over there. And we want to be able to expand that out. And let's go ahead and open this up again. Oops. And maybe I want to drag a standard brush over, drag a few brushes over in there, and maybe also we want to be able to access maybe a couple of strokes. So the rectangle stroke. You can see how the border highlights when it tells us that we're able to add something in here. Now we can also start to add things like custom sub palettes in here. So let's go ahead and do that. Go into Preferences, and again in Custom UI, we'll just go ahead and grab this custom sub palette and drag it over in here. Okay, now you can see we have a sub palette. Now we'll call this one Geo. Let's go ahead and add something first. So Geometry. Let me go ahead and make this a polymesh, and I want to access Delete Hidden. Let's say I use this a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and Control-Alt drag this over to my sub palette here. And let's say that I also use close holes a bit, so I'll go ahead and drag this over as well. And I can go ahead and click on this, and we'll name this something like Geo. And you can see that I can expand it just as any other sub palette. And so what you could do for this is create a configuration where you have a bunch of things that are things that you access often but that aren't necessarily in similar locations. So let's say I want to use the Subtool Master quite a bit, and so I want to be able to access that as a whole, so I can go ahead and bring this over into my interface. Now you can also add, if you want to start to lay this out a little bit differently, you can go ahead and add some of these spacers in here. So we could kind of put a spacer in there. We can get a long one, kind of drop it up inside there. And then maybe here we could go ahead, and if we wanted to put the brushes all together, maybe Subtool Masters by itself, that orange will go away. You can see as soon as I turn off Enable Customize, now we've got this palette built here with the Subtool Master button kind of set off, and then we've got our Geo sub palette there. Okay, so this is a great way to consolidate, and you know, you find those tools that you access a lot that you have to, you know, maybe go in sometimes and find those. You can kind of put those in to your own menu and be able to access that very quickly, and it treats it just as any other menu here. You can see it located up here, and I can just drag it over, oops, and put it into one of the trays and very quickly come in and access the different tools that I might want. And there's a lot of different things you can add. You can add things like materials if you want the skin shade material. Oops, let me go ahead and make sure that I've got Enable Customize turned on. You can drag these different materials over here. Maybe you want to have a different kind of section here. You could do that. Bring in another divider in here, and you can create multiple sub palettes as well if you want to do that. Make your own material sub palette where you've got your materials contained in there, or your own brush sub palette. You could do those as those things as well. And then when you're done, you just turn off Enable Customize, and there you go. Okay, so just experiment with that. Take some of the tools that you often use, drop them into your own custom menu. Make sure to save out your UI when you're done so that you can access that later on. Okay, that's a quick look at creating our own custom palettes. In the next lesson, let's take a look at accessing assets very quickly, because that's another way that we can work faster, and that is to be able to start with assets very, very quickly, find the assets that we need, and so we'll take a look at startup assets and also using Lightbox to access our different assets and how we can save those out. So we'll take a look at that next.